Hello, welcome back to the channel, and this week we're going to be fitting the AQP dash cam, which has got a front and a rear camera, to our Nissan Juke. I'm going to be showing you where I'm going to wire it in, because I'm going to hardwire this and hide away all of the wiring that I can inside the car, so it's a nice and neat installation. So I'll show you how we do that. This is the dash cam that we're going to be using, the AQP dash cam X1. It's what we've used on the channel before. There's a few other videos. I'll put some links down the bottom for the other installs. So we're going to be using that, and there's a couple of other bits that we're going to need for this as well. I'm going to put links to all of it on my my Amazon affiliates links down the bottom. So if you do want to do this install, all the parts should be down there for you. Here we go, this is the parts list. We've got our AQP dash cam. We've got this, which is our USB cigarette adapter. Now I like these ones. I'll put a link to the bottom, because you see it's got quite a few USB sockets on it already, and then 3 cigarette sockets that you can switch on and off separately. That's good to keep in the glove box. If your friend wants to charge your phone in the car, if you do have any other accessories, they're really good. That comes with a standard plug. So what we've also got is a socket with a couple of spade terminals on the end there that we're going to wire in. We're going to use one of these, which is one of these little fuse splitters. On the end of there we've got a socket, so we also have a couple of miscellaneous little plugs and sockets, and actually these as well, because we're going to need a ground connection. We're going to need a little bit of wire as well. Let's go and show you on the car where it's all going to go. So what we're going to do, you can see you've got a power outlet here that we could use. It's quite well hidden away back here, so that might be tricky to get at, but the easier option is if we go into the glove box and you go up the top here, you can see you should just pull down. Let me swap hands. There we go, and that pops out. Actually, it's got the labels on it as well. And what we can do is we can use the mini fuses that exist up here. And what we've got is we've got a nice 20 amp audio in the middle there. I think that's going to be a good candidate. Now we also will need a ground connection as well. And actually, not sure what that is. That there might be a good ground connection, just by undoing that screw and then putting the cabling onto it. Yep, looking up in here, what we've got is a standard Phillips head screw into the bulkhead, so I think that will be our grounding point. I'm going to take that out. Let's see the dimensions of it. Being very careful when you take that screw not to drop it. What I'm thinking we can do is use something like that, and then that will get screwed tight against the metal chassis, and that'll act as our grounding point, and then our fuse as our positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crimp a ground wire onto this and put a connector that will go onto our cigarette socket. Very simple little crimped wire. One end we're going to put through the screw, and that's going to be ground, and then that one there is going to go onto the back of our cigarette socket. It's that simple. Let's just get it fastened back in. Don't lose the screw. Don't lose the screw, because it will disappear. That screw for sure. nice and tight. There we go, that's got a nice connection onto ground. Hopefully you saw what I did there. Just take you in and show you. There it is. And here I've made our positive connection. You can see spade on one end, on the other one of these pins which fits into there. And there it is fitted. One of the 20 amp fuses in the fuse holder there. Now what I'm going to do, I didn't have any of the protected spade connectors, so they're both exposed like that, so I'm going to wrap them in tape because we don't want any exposed metal, just to make sure it doesn't touch anywhere inside. Now actually something I didn't mention is we want this to only turn on when the ignition's on, and that's going to be a bit of trial and error. What we're going to need to do is take a look at the fuses, try them and see which ones turn on and off with the ignition. Now looking at the fuse holder, what have we got? We have a 20 ampere which is audio. Now hopefully that there switches on and off with the ignition. We've also got a 10 amp up there which is also audio. Now one of them's probably the constant feed and the other one will be the switched. We want the switched one, so I think it's time to get the meter in and test them out to be sure. Okay, we've got the multimeter in and we've got it onto voltage. And I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put one pin of the meter. It's going to be really difficult to show you what I'm doing here, so you're going to have to kind of bear with me. So put the ground onto our grounding point that we've just created, and then on the top of these fuse holders, or fuses I should say, there is a little metal pin that you can just get at. Ah no, there we go. I don't know if you can see it, but the meter's showing 12 volts. So we know that that 20 amp fuse there is carrying constant voltage. Let's now swap to one of these ones. Okay, that's not giving me any voltage at all. I'll just compare to another one. That one's got 12 volts. So that there, that 10 amp, looks like that's the one that we want. It's not getting voltage right now. Just to make sure, what I can now do is turn the ignition on and see if that then gets 12 volts to it. Okay, it was difficult to show whilst the camera was on, but I did test that 10 amp audio fuse that is up the top there, and that did get 12 volts when the ignition was turned on, and then when an ignition goes off it turns off. So that is the feed for the radio, I think, and that's the one that we're going to use. Now the only thing is, as you probably noticed, the fuse I've got here is a 20 amp fuse and that's only a 10 amp fuse. What you should do is you should match that, because you do not want to overrate what is going through these. Ideally that should now be down to a 10 amp. Unfortunately I don't have one, so I'm going to fit it like that for now and then change it later. So now the simple change, let's get the meter out of the way, is all we're going to do is take the fuse out. Again, I've got no idea whether you can see what I'm doing here or not. Is that a fuse clip? Yes, it is. So I'm going to pull that out, making sure I'm paying attention as to which fuse hole that actually went in, and then I'm going to push that one back in. Well, as luck was ahead of it, I've found a 10 amp fuse whilst I was doing that. So what we're going to do it's very difficult to do with a camera in the way as well as a light. There we go. Hopefully you can see that is in quite nice and snugly into our little fuse box. and that means that should come on now when the ignition is turned on. Well, let's put our little fuse remover out back in. Can't remember where that went actually. Ah, there we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the ignition on, and then we can test and see that our new socket's working. What I tend to use for this job is one of these because it's got a little voltmeter on it, and they're only a couple of pounds off eBay, and I don't mind if it gets damaged or anything like that. I'd much rather do that than damage anything else. So now that's in, let's turn the ignition on, and there we go. We've got voltage coming through, and yep, the radio's come on as well. That's great news, and that means that our socket is working. And if I turn the ignition back off again, there you go, it loses power straight away. Perfect. We now have our socket in the glove box. Oh, one thing that I have forgotten to do is feed the wires through our little grab handle. Luckily they're on spades, so we can just disconnect them, put them through, and then that means we can put the cover back on and it's tight. The next steps are finding where to mount the dash cam, so I think just underneath the marked areas here, and then we can feed the wire up along, round. Now the reverse, or the rear camera I should say, could feed up and around here, and the power down this pillar inside the rubber insert. There seems quite a bit of space there, so I think we should be okay. Let's get the dash cam out and take a look and see how it fits up here. Now you've seen me unbox the AQP dash cam. Now again, this isn't a sponsored listing, I just find these dash cams work really well. Fitted them to quite a lot of the cars that we have for some time now. They get really good quality. Have used them a couple of times now in anger. Got the footage off and found that it's really good quality, does the job. It also shows GPS speed and all that kind of thing. There we go, that's the manual. We've got some 3M sticky tape. We've got the dash cam itself. Actually there's already 3M tape on there, with the removable little battery and GPS module that attaches onto there like that. By the way, if you get rid of a car, as we did recently, don't forget to take that off the windscreen, because you cannot get those as a replacement part. So unfortunately, it's a whole new unit. And in here we have all of our cabling, which is what we're going to want now. So here we have our power. Now you can see it comes with its own socket and actually another little USB plug through, so that'll be able to go into our multi-socket quite nicely. If you do want to do your own wire, it's fairly straightforward. It's one of these types of USB sort of squarer, just if you do want to do that yourself. And then here we have the rear facing camera, a load of wire on it, connector as well to make it a little bit easier. There is also this red wire which you can connect to the reverse lights if you wish, and so when the car goes into reverse it will put it onto the dash cam screen, but I tend not to use that because I prefer to hide this up out of the way so you can't really see it. Just one thing to mention, it doesn't come with an SD card, micro SD I should say, so you will need your own. I'm not going to bore you with the whole fitting because this is just fitting and hiding wires. I think probably somewhere about there. I'm going to go as high up as I can without getting onto the hashed area, so it would impact it, but I think something like that. Then we'll just have the wires go straight up and across. So I'm going to start fitting that now. I'll show you how I get on. I've now had to stick to doing this completely from the interior. I've ran the cabling all the way around the top for the rear camera. You can hear it's pouring down outside, and along and up, and I think the camera is going to have to just kind of sit on the boot lid like so. Whether that's going to get a great image or not, I'm not sure. The other alternative was to put it down at the bottom there, but again, the angles wouldn't be great. Ideally it should be on the outside, but I don't think going down and out to the number plate is a great option at the minute, especially with it pouring down. So I think I'm going to go with this one. At least it can go on with sticky tape on the back on that double-sided piece, and then at least see how it comes along. You can see the rest of the wiring I've hidden away. It's fairly straightforward to manage to fit into the little gaps along the top. Need to put that piece away a little bit more. You can see I've got down to there, and now what I need to do is go down, around and up into the glove box, but I need to wait for the rain to stop because it is absolutely pouring down outside, and I don't really want to have the doors open and be stuck doing that right now. As usual, bit of rain. Oh, the other thing that I was going to mention, the other sockets I've got. Now, we've put a charger over the side there for the phone, and I've got very long USB cable that what I'm going to do is feed down through the middle of the console and then up into the glove box, and that's going to be to charge that as well. There is a USB socket on the Duke, but that's for MP3 and for controlling a phone. It's not really for charging, so I wouldn't want to try and force high power charging through that, so I'm just going to feed that across that way. I'm going to do that and I'll show you the results. Just quickly wanted to mention this little fuse box that's on the side here is actually really useful. What I've done is I've fed the wire in, and by taking the inside cover off again and put my hand in, I could actually reach across and pull this through, and that's worked out really quite a nice little way of doing it. Now hopefully I can just fit this wire in and put the cover back on, and that's our power going through. Cover goes on quite nicely. All I did was fed the wire. You can just see the top of the wire there. Just push that in a little bit more. One of these little plastic tools are really useful for this kind of thing. Just means you can lift the rubber out of the way and just gently tease the wire in. I'm not doing a very good job again. Two hands does make this a little bit easier. And then all I did was had the wire come down and then inside, and the cover goes back on really nicely, and the wire can then come in down here and plug in. At this point, I think what we can do is we can turn the ignition on. You can see the power come on. I've switched that outlet on, which means that is lit up, and hopefully if I press the power, now I would have thought it would have turned on, so maybe I've got a connection wrong somewhere. Let me double check the connections and figure out why it's not turning on. Oh, there we go. Nah, maybe it's just battery because it's been unplugged for so long. Haven't put a memory card in it either, but it looks like we're now getting a picture, and I can start to line it up and take a look. Now this particular camera does have a Android app with it, so you can position it and look on your phone, which I find quite easy. So I'll show you that in a second. And there we go, that's the AQP webcam fitted into our Nissan Juke, and also the extra USB charging sockets and things like that. Hope this video has been useful. If nothing else, you now know where 2 fuse boxes are in the Nissan Juke. You've got the smaller one inside the glove box, and you've got the other one on the side where the airbag sticker is. Hope this has been useful too. If it has, please put a thumbs up. It really helps the channel out if you give us a thumbs up, and if you like these videos and you want more, then of course subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.